we're going to do something a little bit different this morning. As you can see, my stage hands are setting up the props. Give them a good hand for not only worship, but all the rest that they do. If you've been with us the last few weeks, we've been doing a series called Lost about finances. And today we're going to interview two couples. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about these two couples. First of all, they're very brave. We know from surveys that you would rather talk about your sex life than you would about your finances. And here we're going to have a couple of couples come up here and talk about their finances and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's two reasons why we want to do this. Number one is this. Most of the time, and it doesn't matter what we get ourselves caught in, most of the times when we are caught in something that we can't get out of, we really feel like we're in it alone. So one of the objectives of this morning is to do an interview to let you know that you're not alone. I know that we're talking to a lot of people this morning that are in a difficult situation in your finances. As a matter of fact, you're worrying about the bills you're going to have to face again next month. And second of all, what we want you to understand is these people are going to provide you with hope, that there is a way out of this. So I want to invite Marlainis and Chris Ballard and Brent and Kim Goff. Would you guys come up and give them a big hand for coming up here? And again, we're going to talk about where it went wrong, the good, the bad, and the ugly of our finances this morning. And so pray for me. I did it twice last night, interview, and I don't know what kind of an interviewer I am, but once in a while, you'll find out I'll just start preaching and interrupt these guys. So I just can't get out of it, So anyway. Okay. Brent, Kim, Marlainis, and Chris. I want to start with you, Chris, and you, Marlainis, because your story is so unique. And what I really want to get at is tell us how bad it really was with your finances when you were in debt.
Do you want me to talk?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and we have to go through this too. We'll find out, who is the dominant one.
Well, we got married when we were both older than most people, and when we got married, we both brought into the marriage a significant amount of debt, specifically credit card debt.
Do you want to say which one brought the most so that we...
Oh, I think it was... Well, that was generous on my wife's part. I think we were equal opportunity chargers before we got married.
We had about 40...
Yeah, we had $45,000 worth of credit card debt we brought into our marriage. Mm-hmm. And so, when we first got married, my wife took a significant paycheck. We're not from here. We moved out here because I got a job out here, and she actually took a demotion from her employer to move out here with me. And we faced obviously some serious financial issues, specifically just with respect to the credit card debt when we first got married.
And some of that was weddings, honeymoons, and...
Well, when we decided that we were going to get married, we decided that we didn't want to get into more debt than what we were already in. So we sat down and we had a budget, and...
A budget for our wedding.
A budget for our wedding, and decided that what we could afford to pay in cash is what we would...
What you would do.
What we would use.
Okay. Brent and Kim, tell us about yours and how much debt you guys had and the ugly of the situation.
Well, which time?
Yeah, that's good. Well, anytime, whatever you choose.
Going into the marriage, we didn't really have a whole lot. We didn't do a big wedding. We had a wonderful honeymoon in Puerto Vallarta, and 8 days after we got back, we had a fire in the kitchen. So that's the way we started. Our debt, snowball, if you will, paid that all off probably within a year or two, and decided it was time to buy a new car because, hey, we were pregnant. So back and forth, you hear about the diet yo-yo. Well, we did the debt yo-yo. Yeah, and been there, done that. We have so many souvenirs. It's not even funny, but it's, that's how we started. And you forward fast, almost 20 years, and, we could say that we've gone back and forth, but...
Yeah. So you've gone into debt and out of debt.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's a struggle.
It's a struggle.
Well, being out of debt gave us a false sense of security and a false sense of freedom, if you will, thinking, oh, hey, now we've got the freedom to really move. You know that Chase credit card commercial?
Yeah.
Free to do whatever you want.
Sing it.
It's,
No way.
Sing it. Okay, because obviously you're going right into my next question here, is how much of the cultural influence played into the debt game that you were playing?
Geez, it's huge. I mean, in my opinion, the way our culture works is that commercials are geared to get you to buy things now, to get you to buy things that you want, not things that you need. And the way our culture works, he who dies with the most wins. And I got caught up in that, and that's why I ended up in credit card debt, because I would buy things that I didn't really need, but I wanted them because I thought, they would make me a better person, or they make me more well-liked amongst my friends and things of that nature. And so, that's how I got into the mess that I got into. And then, even after we got married, we struggled with, things of that nature. Are we going to buy things because we want them or because we need them?
And I think that after a few months after we got married, Chris and I sat down and looked at what we owed. And I sat there and I cried because I never really realized on how much debt I had gotten myself into. And it was, I was making a lot of money when I was in my, young, early 20s. And I had, 2 or 3 credit cards because everyone was willing to give me a credit card. And I was buying everything.
Nice?
Aren't they nice?
Yes.
Yes. But they don't tell you about the compound interest. They don't, you don't really, conceptualize how much money you're really going to end up owing. And we had to really sit down and decide what we wanted to do with that debt. And like Chris said since the beginning, and he always reminds me, is that we didn't get into the debt overnight, and we couldn't get out of the debt overnight. Because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be paying this until I'm 85, because it was just so overwhelming.
Yeah. And I want to come back to that point, but they talk about the discipline it took to get out of debt. You guys, tell us again where it was for you at, when you were at your greatest amount of debt and what that was like.
Dan, I think that one thing that really set me off was when Kim called me on the cell phone. She said, Brent, the car died, okay, and the kids don't have their shoes on, so they're out in the middle of July, and the car won't run. So I took her down to Bozarth. No offense if you're a car dealer, but we went and bought the brand new minivan on time, okay? So what spun me up into the most debt was that car purchase due to the anger and the discontentment I had with our old minivan that needed to be fixed once again. So we went down there and bought it. It was $541.08 a month.
Not including insurance.
Yeah, not including the insurance. And, that commercial, it says, like a rock, well, that's the value going down. So we hung on to that for, I think, 4 years and sold it, and we paid that payment every month. And boy, that'll just suck the life out of your finances. And that was $30,000, Dan, right
That
there.
Wow.
plus credit card debt.
Yeah.
So
Talk about the stress that brought into your relationships when you're under that kind of financial bondage. Chris?
Well, like I said, when we got married, we both brought debt into the marriage, and it was a big stressor when we were first married because we used to fight about money. We'd fight about what each other was spending, and we had a really difficult time, I guess, communicating is just the best way to put it, because we were both used to managing our own finances, and then when we brought things together, I wanted to be in control of the money, and she wanted to be in control of the money. And she wanted to know what I was doing, and I wanted to know what she was doing. It was just a thing that we fought about on a constant basis. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
You guys, the stress that it brought in?
No.
No?
Stress, none.
No, I think Chris made a good point. You want to know, I wanted to know what Brent was doing, Brent wanted to know what I was doing, and yet neither one of us really had the courage to say, what are you doing?
Right.
What is going on? And something that got me to thinking about this whole thing was that the debt breeds secrecy in our relationship. We were, bills wouldn't get paid, or they'd be floated, or, oh gee, I really want to buy this little thing, she won't notice, or whatever. It was both ways. I was just as guilty. So the secrecy thing was, it can be a real division.
Wedge.
Sure.
And I think also what caused, to your point, is that, he would go out and spend $40, and I'd be like, well, gosh darn it, I'm going to spend 50. It's like, I have a right to.
Competition.
I work. It turned into almost a competition, because I was just like, well, I didn't spend any money this week. Well, why are you spending money this week? Well, then I'm going to spend double next week. So it became like a really bone of contention.
And another thing that happened between you and I that I remember is, I would ask you, if you had any receipts from spending money during the course of the week, and you'd get defensive. You'd be like, well, why do you want to know? Well, wait a minute, it's an innocent question. I just want to know so I can balance the checkbook. I'm not, and that was a difficult thing that we dealt with as well.
It was more of, why are you monitoring my spending?
Yeah.
I'm an adult, I know
Which,
how
by
to
the way,
spend
after
money.
this, we do have marriage counseling. For these couples. Counselors are right in the prayer room. They're going to take them back through this. So we know it heats up. But I want to, something that came out in the 4 couples, because we had 2 different couples last night, that came out in this that I was totally unaware of, but I know it to be a truth. And that is this, that when a male, now, ladies, you just have to understand this, because I think intuitively God has put within us the need to be a provider, protector. And when we're not providing at a level that we think our family should have, then we go out and work harder. Or we'll find another job, or we'll do something else. And then to have that stress when you come home, because now you got to go to another job, puts more stress on the relationships. So I want to talk about now, and I felt like I was losing control of the interview. But what I want to talk about, because Chris, you and Marlainis made an incredible point the other night about the discipline it takes to get out of do you remember what I was talking about?
Yeah, shortly after we got married, my wife talked me into going to Crown. And I didn't want to go, but when we went to Crown, I learned lots of stuff about money management. And after we were in Crown, we sat down and decided, okay, we're going to devise a plan to attack debt, specifically our credit card debt. And we sat down and we said, every month we're going to dedicate X number of dollars to our smallest credit card, and we're going to be disciplined about that every single month. And then once we knock out that debt, we're going to go to the next biggest credit card. And that's exactly what we did. And it took a long time for us to get out of credit card debt, but we did it. We've been married for 4.5 years, and we sacrificed, we just...
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
We lived in a 900 square foot apartment for 4 years and 2 months because we wanted to do the credit card debt first and get our financial house in order before we took on more things. And, my wife says, I say this all the time, and I do, it didn't take us 2 months to get into credit card debt. It wouldn't take us 2 months to get out of it. But if you have the discipline, it can be accomplished. But you have to make a plan in your own mind that that's what you want to get accomplished. And if you do that and stay with the plan, it will work. If not, you're going to be in that kind of a situation for a heck of a long time.
You guys said something that was so unique. Tell us about the celebration that you do.
Because it's really stressful. You're concentrating on trying to eliminate a debt.
And you're making sacrifices. You're not buying things and stuff like that you want, not that you need.
Right.
But things that we might want, we didn't buy. So I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. So what we would do is when we would pay off the credit card, that first credit card, we would reward ourselves by either going out to dinner. We wouldn't put it on the credit card.
Yeah, that's the question. Did you put it on the credit card? No.
Or if...
We'd set aside some mad money, like $100 per person to go spend on whatever you wanted, as a reward for the discipline that it took to pay off whatever debt it was.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Brent, Kim?
You mentioned that going after the smallest credit card first, and that's interesting because we did the same type of snowball, and there's some power and focus when you do that.
That's right.
If you train all your guns on that one little guy and knock it out of your house, okay, and then move on to the next one, you get hope.
Right,
There's hope to this, you
There's
guys.
a sense of accomplishment because you've tackled one as opposed to going after the biggest one.
That's
You don't have to be overwhelmed that way with oh, geez, I got 15 credit cards. You know, what do? Most people just run around in circles, you know. So just focus on the little guy and move it out of your life.
You take one, get that paid off,
Yeah.
then what extra you have there, you put it on the next
That's
one.
But
it.
that payment that you were making on that credit card, we went ahead and applied it, that whole entire amount to the next amount.
That's
So we're
right.
almost making like a double payment.
That's
on
it.
the credit
Right.
card.
I kind of want to retrogress here for just a minute. Tell me what was the aha moment, you know, when you go, oh God, we've got to talk about this. You know, when was that moment? And what was it like saying, this can't go on, the kind of lifestyle that we have? Chris, Marlainis?
I think we were both cognizant of the fact that we had a lot of debt when we got married. And for us, the aha moment was when we went into Crown. I didn't really want to take Crown. I thought I knew, you know, how to manage our money and that I was doing a reasonably good job. But when we went into Crown, I mean, you see some things like they have this chart that shows the beauty of compounding interest and how much it's going to cost you in the long run if you don't attack your debt as soon as you can. And as we went through the process of Crown, I mean, we started sitting down and really having discussions with one another about our finances as opposed to having arguments with one another about our finances.
And
So
that
you were
was
able
real-
to talk about it.
That was really, really difficult for us because anytime we'd mention anything about money, both of us would get really defensive. I'd get defensive
Yeah.
because he wasn't receptive, or vice versa. He thought I was judging him, or thought he was judging me. And I think, though, just sitting down and trying to work out a budget together and really realizing where everything was going, that was a big eye-opener for us. Because, you know, I always felt, okay, you know, if we have a little bit of extra money in our checkbook, I feel a little bit more comfortable. But when you're going, okay, you have $10 in your checkbook and you don't get paid for another week, you know, that was alarming, because you knew that anything that came up, whether it be having to get
Right.
gas, having to get groceries, would have to go on a credit card.
Credit card.
Yeah.
You were trapped. Brent? Kim?
Kim?
Talk about that time you had to really talk about it.
Well, it's like Brent recalls having a second job in Denver teaching, and we're 4 years into our new car, and he's thinking, well, why can't we get ahead? Why can't we, you know, get a savings put together? We can't pay down the debt. And for us, it's time to sell the car. It's time to
Yeah.
change the lifestyle. It was getting mad. It was getting frustrated enough to
Tired.
say, forget it.
I
I'm
think it's
done.
interesting for you, Kim, just to say that you were at a point where you said, if we had to eat beans and rice
That's right.
for the next month. I mean,
That's right.
it came to such a point of aggravation that we're going to do
Absolutely.
something about that.
Absolutely. We changed everything, and it's like what the Ballards did. We changed the way we grocery shopped. We got rid of luxuries. And
Cable.
Yeah.
cell
Goodbye.
phones, cable.
Cable, I heard the sigh.
changed.
Cable, it's got to
Yeah, for those of you with children, you know how much that hurts. But no, it was amazing.
Dial-up internet.
Yeah, instead of the DSL or whatever, we said no, and we said, you know what, that's okay. It came down to a contentment issue.
We sold the
It
car.
was, right.
Yeah.
We can make do with less